Guys, it's Sarah and I am here with my April wrap up. So April ended up being a pretty good month. I got 9 books read, so that was pretty good. And I'm pretty happy with everything I read this month. The first book that I read this month is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, and this was a book that was on my birthday reading project, and I ended up really enjoying it. I listened to the audiobook of this one, and it was really good because it was a full cast, so each character whose point of view it's told from, you got a different narrator for it, so that really helped me to be able to differentiate the different characters. And this one was pretty hard-hitting with the topic. It does cover sexual assault and kind of the idea behind the mentality of people around women in general and how dangerous it can be to have kind of these over-sexualized attitudes towards them and things that can happen because of that. And I thought it was really interesting. I loved all the characters. I thought they were great. They all had some flaws, definitely, but at the same time, it made the story really good. And so the only thing I didn't love about this book is that it seemed like this was really set in a small town, which it did say, you know, over and over again that it was a small town, so there weren't a ton of people in it. But it seemed like the overall mentality as far as the men go is that women are sexual objects and that's it. And it's okay to rape them and it's okay to, you know, talk about them in a derogatory manner. And I just didn't see that many heroes coming out and trying to defend the women, or, you know, women trying to defend themselves even. So that's the only thing I was kind of like, really, everyone in that town has the same mentality. So I wanted more people standing up for either others or for themselves. So, but I did give this book a 4.5 stars. The next book I read is A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This is by Becky Chambers, and this one is also on my birthday reading list. And this is a science fiction book, and I believe it's a young adult, maybe new adult more than anything. And this follows a crew of people who are living on a spaceship, and they have a very hard job, and it's not a very desired job either because it's dangerous. But their job is to poke holes into the atmosphere so that people can travel through them. And that's very dangerous because a lot can go wrong. You can literally get lost in space. And so it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that, and a lot of teamwork and a lot of coordination. And it's just not a highly desired position just because of the danger of it. And a new crew member comes on board, and she is really tasked to work with the captain of the ship in order to kind of help him get his paperwork in order and all of his, you know, kind of clerical things situated and done and organized, and, you know, make sure everything's legit, basically. And she comes on board with some secrets from her past as well. And it was really good. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 stars. This one is really hyped on BookTube, so I was a little bit like, ooh, am I gonna like it? But I did really like it. The characters were all so fantastic. And I really found myself struggling with a few of them as far as like, ooh, I don't like you. Oh, but maybe I kind of do. Okay, now I get it. Okay, maybe you're okay. Oh, nope, you're not okay. Like it was just very much a struggle, which I love. I love kind of the ups and downs and feeling all those emotions. I think my favorite character was Sizzix, and the way that she was described was just a very graceful and beautiful being, and she had feathers, but she walked on 2 legs like a human. Like, I almost pictured her like a peacock almost, but like with a human, more of a human face, and that's just kind of how I pictured her. But she was very wise, and I really liked the background of her culture, and it was just really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I liked the dynamics between all the characters. There were some very interesting plot twists and very creative things that were happening in there as far as the writing goes and as far as where the story was going and the backgrounds of all the people. And as I was reading it, I was kind of almost picturing like, you know, the bar scene from Star Wars, just like all these different creatures in it, you know, just like everyone looks and comes from different, you know, species and all that, and they're all working together. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I definitely plan to pick up the 2nd and 3rd one as well. But yeah, and this one I buddy read with Krista from Books and Jams, and I will leave her channel link down below, but she enjoyed it as much as I did. And yeah, it was really good. The third book that I read is Bonfire by Kristen Ritter, and this is a book that I actually borrowed from someone in my book club, so I finally got to it. It took me a while, but I was really interested in this one because I do like Kristen Ritter as an actress. I really liked her in Breaking Bad, and I haven't seen her in Jessica Jones yet, but I've heard really good things about that. It's on my list to watch sometime. But I was interested to see how she is as an author, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was really happy that I was surprised because I went into it a little bit like, ooh, I hope I don't like hate this, you know, and then I have like different thoughts toward her, but I didn't. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. This follows a young woman who is removed from her hometown. She ends up going back because she's doing kind of an investigative type thing as far as the environmental situation goes in that town, and you know, kind of doing some research and finding out things that are happening because of a big company that has located there, and you know, there's a lot of contamination in the water, and so she's on the team that is investigating this. She also is coming back to a lot of drama because she had a lot of drama growing up and a lot of friendships that were not real friendships, and she's running into some of those people again, and it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was written really, really well, and yeah, I liked it. I gave it a 4 stars. The next one I read was an ARC, and I do have a separate review video for this, so I will link that down below as well if you guys want to check it out. But that is Go Ask Fanny, written by Elizabeth Hyde. This is a family drama that follows a weekend where a father has invited all of his 3 grown kids to come back to his house and spend a weekend with him. And it's under the pretense that he really wants to kind of stage an intervention for his youngest daughter because he doesn't agree with the person that she's dating. So he wanted his other 2 children to help him kind of, you know, help the situation along and try to talk some sense into her, basically. And what ends up happening is all 3 of his kids bring their own set of drama and their own set of issues that they're dealing with. And not only are they dealing with that, but they're dealing with the fact that their father's getting older and he may not be able to take care of himself quite as well. As they're going through this whole weekend and going through all these things, some family secrets start to kind of happen, and they start asking some questions about their mother, who is no longer with them. And they find out some things that happened in their past, which had really kind of shaped their family, kind of reshaped their family. There was one big event that happened that really changed the way that their family lived their lives. And so they start finding out some truths behind that event. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought the writing was fantastic. I thought the characters were all great. I really liked the dynamic between them, and I liked all their flaws. And yeah, so it was really good. I gave it 4 stars. But if you want to see a little bit more in depth of my views and everything and what I thought, then I will leave my review link down below. The next one I read was another buddy read that I read with my friend Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library. And this was Before We Were Yours, and that is by Lisa Wingate. Oh my gosh, this book. I listened to the audio of this book, which it was great, but I need to get my hands on a physical copy. Oh, this book was so heartbreaking. This is a historical fiction, and it is based on an actual true event that happened. It follows an orphanage that is set in Tennessee, and it was called, I think it was the Tennessee Children's Home Society, I believe is what the name of the organization was. And it was run by a woman named Georgia Tam, and this was back in the early 1900s. And you find out that, you know, she really prides herself on, you know, this is the perfect orphanage and the children are so loved, and we're, you know, saving these children and giving them to wealthy homes and, you know, homes where people are going to take care of them and blah, 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 blah. No, she was kidnapping them. She was kidnapping the children. Some of the children were taken out of dangerous situations, so there is that. But a lot of these children, especially like blonde hair, blue-eyed children, were taken from their families some way, somehow. Sometimes the families would be told in the hospital that their baby had died, and that was not the case. So these people go throughout their entire life thinking that they have a baby that died, and that's not true. She went in and she took them from the hospital and is selling them to wealthy families for adoption. Sometimes these kids were taken from their families right in front of their faces, and there was nothing they could do about it, or they were blackmailed somehow. This woman had a judge in her pocket and was helping her with all the legal documents that, you know, made it impossible for anyone to contest what she was doing. And it was just crazy. So we follow some of the children who were in that situation. They're in that orphanage dealing with her, and just the things that they went through. They were so abused. They were malnourished. Some of them were sexually abused with the knowledge of that it was happening, but nothing was done to stop it. And some of them were physically abused. And it was just, oh my gosh, I didn't cry because I swear, like, I'm a stone person when I'm reading. It takes a lot to make me cry, but I was close. It was just so heartbreaking what these children had to go through, and just knowing that some of them were literally torn from their families and they didn't know why they were there. And, yeah, it was really heartbreaking. So we do follow that timeline there. And then Georgia Tam was a real person. I've done some more research on her. I actually want to read some nonfiction about her now because of that book. But it goes another timeline, which is more today, and it is following a young senator's daughter who is putting some pieces of her family's past together just through some different circumstances, and finding out how her family is connected with this whole situation back then that nobody even really knew about. So yeah, crazy. It was absolutely crazy, and I loved every single second of it. Again, I listened to the audio, but I really want to get my hands on a physical copy for my shelves because this is one that I would just recommend to everybody, and it was really good. 5 stars. Next one that I read was for the Deadly Divas book club. All that information is linked down below if you guys want to join Lisa and I in our monthly reading over there. And we read The Secret Mother by Shailene Boland. And this one I really liked as well. This one follows a woman who is in the middle of a separation from her husband, and she had recently lost their son to leukemia. And they also had a twin of that boy, a little girl who passed away, and like during birth. So this woman's going through a lot. She's literally lost her entire family, and so she's really kind of struggling to keep herself together, and she's become kind of a nuisance to her ex-husband, or the husband she's separated from. They're not divorced, but she's, every time she calls him or has information or wants to ask a question, it's just like, oh my gosh, you again type thing. So she really feels like she's a nuisance to other people as well, but she's just trying to, make sense of her life, basically. One day, a little boy walks into her house and says, "So you're my mom?" And she was like, "I'm sorry, what?" She has no idea who this kid is. She has a conversation with him to try to figure out who his parents are, and, to make sure that she gets them where they need to go. She ends up calling the police, but she has had issues with the police in the past because she had kind of a psychotic break right after her child died, and she almost walked off with someone else's child in the park. So she has a little bit of a reputation for, taking children that don't belong to her. So that is like the immediate suspicion for this little boy being in her house, even though she didn't do anything. So things start happening, and she starts trying to piece things together because she's really kind of, really trying to figure out who this kid is and why he's calling her mother. Like, there's something about the situation that is really, kind of grinding on her, and she wants to figure out what it is. And she does. And it was crazy. So I really enjoyed this one. I liked the writing a lot. And the only thing I really wish was that I wish there were more of the little boy, and I just wanted more of him because he seemed like a very central part to the story, but he was really only there in the beginning and in the end. So I wanted more of him, maybe like her seeing him out on the streets, or, him running to her again or something. I just wanted more of that. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. And I gave that one 4 stars too. And the next book that I finished, finally, I finished Lonesome Dove. I only started this January 1st. January 1st. I finished it in April. It's okay. It's a really, really long book, and I really loved this. This is Lonesome Dove by Larry Murtry. And this is a Western book, which is not a genre I would ever pick up on my own. Like, ever. I've never read a Western before. So this is my first one. But this is one of my mother's favorite books, and I have seen the miniseries for this. I watched it growing up with her like a few times because she loves it. And I remember really enjoying the miniseries when I was little. And so I thought it'd be cool to read the book, and I had picked it up at Book Outlet a while ago, and then there was a read-along for this starting in January. I did fall off the wagon a little bit as far as keeping up with the read-along, but I was determined to finish it before too long, which I did, so I'm really happy about that. But this follows a group of cowboys, and they are going on a cattle run. Like, they're taking cattle from Texas to Montana to kind of like settle there and kind of start a new settlement type thing. And the characters in this book are so fantastic. They are so good. So this is definitely more of a character driven story than anything. And I don't want to say there's not much action, because there is. Like, there's gunfights, and there's, storms that are really dangerous, and, there's Indians and things like that. So definitely some dangerous situations. But the funny thing is, like, the less dangerous it seemed was like kind of the more anxious I got with them. Like, the storms were crazy, and you don't think like a storm would be a big deal, but when you're out literally in the middle of the desert and you don't have shelter, and you are like surrounded by thousands of cows who are getting spooked and starting to stampede a little bit, but you can't even see in front of your face because it's so dark and so wet, and you can't see anything. It was crazy. And then there was a grasshopper attack at one point, and I was like, what in the world? Like, thousands and thousands of grasshoppers, and I was just like getting creepy crawly. And like, those parts to me were more kind of terrifying than like the people, like if they're getting attacked by people. It was just so weird. Anyway, so tons of great characters in here. There's a few different characters from different places, and they all kind of cross paths, at some point or another. And I loved it. I really did. I really loved this book, and it took me by surprise, because I kind of knew the basic story, but it's been a very, very, very long time since I've watched the miniseries. Now I want to watch it again. I'm definitely planning to do that soon. But yeah, so Newt was one of my favorite characters. He was one of my favorite characters when I was watching the show as well. And then I also loved Gus. Oh my gosh, I loved him so much. And yeah, just fantastic. Really, really good. I really actually highly recommend this. Even if a Western is not your thing, I would suggest giving this a try. Even if you do the audiobook, which I listened to a little bit. I think I read 3/4 of this physically, and then I finished it up on audiobook, and both were great. So I loved it. So 4.5 stars. The next book was another book off my birthday reading project, and that is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. And this one I listened to on audiobook as well. And this follows a Chinese family who had immigrated over to America, and they're living in the Bay Area. And it's kind of a group of friends who are all from kind of the same culture and the same background, and they are meeting every so often to kind of share their stories from their childhoods and what's going on with their families. And you're kind of getting these accounts of all these stories. And there's a lot about the Chinese culture and traditions and all that stuff. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. This one I listened to on audiobook as well. I was surprised at how short the book was. The print book was only like 280 pages or something. So that kind of took me by surprise, but I mean, that's fine. I thought it was going to be longer. But yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It wasn't mind-blowing in any way, shape, or form, but I really liked, getting some of that culture and getting some of the stories from kind of some Chinese traditions and things like that. I thought that was really interesting. And the last book that I finished in April is Tin Man by Sarah Winman. This was another book that is on my birthday reading project, and it's a book that I actually got sent to for a review as well. So I was kind of knocking 2 birds out with this one. And I'm going to have a full review up for this when the release date comes, which is May 15th. So I'm not going to talk too much about it here, just because I will have a full review video for that up. But this one follows a man who is kind of reflecting on his life because he has hit a point where he's really struggling, and he's kind of lost some really special people to him. And it's a lot of kind of reflecting on some friendships that he had in his life, one of them being his best friend. And his best friend ended up being a little bit more than a friend. So he, reflects on that time and what they went through together. And then he ends up, marrying a woman, but still having his best friend, Michael, and, still those feelings are there. So you don't see too much of a struggle struggle as far as his sexuality goes. I think he's pretty comfortable with it, but you do see the back and forth, and you see, you know, how his relationship with Michael started and kind of how it evolved, and, you know, kind of how it crumbled a little bit as well. So you're really going through all of that with them. But this was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a really quick read. It's really small, but a lot was packed in here for being such a small book. I was surprised. And the characters were absolutely fantastic, and I loved every single one of them. So again, I will have a review for this one up with a lot more details about it on May 15th, but I did give this one 4 stars. And unfortunately, I did not get to Wonder Woman or Cinder, which are the 2 books that my girls picked out for me for April, and I just kind of ran out of time, but I do still have them on my nightstand, so they are kind of sitting there and waiting for me. I did start Wonder Woman. I read like 5 pages the other day, which were entertaining for sure, so that one I'll, you know, will probably be the one that I read first because I've already kind of stuck my nose in it. But yeah, I felt kind of bad, but the girls were like, it's okay, Mom, you're busy. I'm like, no, but you picked those. Like, those should have been the first ones I read. So it's all right. At least they're understanding. But yeah, they're sitting on my nightstand, so I do plan to get to them soon still. Okay, guys, that is it. That is what I read in the month of April. And let me know down below if you guys have read any of these books or if you're planning to pick any of them up after hearing my thoughts on them. I hope you do. And I will be back tomorrow with my May and June plans. I'm combining them together for a very specific reason, which I will tell you about tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you again soon. Bye.